Now, Ms. Charles, we're looking at is there a rise in ER admission in your neck of the woods out there in Atlanta or in the U.S., for instance, and is it linked to cannabis consumption?
Oh God, yes. So let me give you the three top ones right now. For cannabis consumption, the biggest thing that we see right now is what's called hyperemesis syndrome. It's chronic hyperemesis syndrome. It's called CHS, and that's where that THC goes, and it causes you to start vomiting uncontrollably for days, and you can't stop. And it gives you a neurological abdominal pain as well. Without going too deep into the physiology of it, it causes you to just not be able to stop vomiting. And the vomiting can get so severe that I had a young man that his electrolytes got out of whack and ended up having to go to the ICU because electrolytes, your potassium and magnesium loss, can make your heart do funny things. So his heart was going into different rhythms that were not conducive for him to be alive for a very long time. So we ended up having to admit him to the ICU strictly from the hyperemesis. And the crazier part is that the hyperemesis, they'll come in, they'll be in the hospital for a week. We'll hydrate them, we'll get their electrolytes back in balance, and get their pain and vomiting under control, and they'll come right back in 2 or 3 weeks with the same condition. So we know there's physical properties in what they're taking that's making them become addicted to the cannabis consumption. Secondly, is going to be the psychosis and panic attacks and anxiety. Right now in youth, that is absolutely through the roof. We see patients every day come in, numerous patients under 20 years old that have this form of psychosis. So the frontal lobe of the brain is not developed until you're 25 years of age. So what happens is when that THC hits it, it is absolutely not designed for an undeveloped brain. So when it hits them, the results are all over the place. They can have they get super anxious. They can have panic attacks. I've seen them come in with full psychosis. For instance, I posted a video recently of unfortunately, a young 9-year-old boy was given some edibles
Yes.
by some students, older students, I understand, and that's what 2,000 milligrams of edibles will do to a 9-year-old brain. He thought he was seeing monsters, and he
Yeah,
was actually
yes.
yes,
Yes, Ms. Charles, and I would like you to stress on that some more, please, because
yes,
a lot of people don't know about consuming edibles. They don't know how to do it. Some people would eat a whole brownie in one
yeah,
sitting and then wake up to next to their body. And
yeah,
so could you
yeah.
please elaborate on that?
So the problem with edibles is that they're a delayed release. So the likelihood of you overdosing on edibles is very high because you'll take it and you'll go, oh, I'm fine for 40 minutes without realizing that in 40 minutes, 45 minutes, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks. So your tendency is to say, I'm going to take an additional one because I'm not getting the sensation that I wanted from the first one. And the thing you've got to realize in basic human physiology, tolerance means if you take something today, tomorrow, incrementally, you've got to take a little bit more of what you took yesterday in order to get the same reaction because your body has adapted to that particular substance. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
So that automatically drives higher consumption, more frequent use, and then leads to addiction. And that's what the youth have to understand is that in order for you to have that same sensation, for instance, in the 80s when crack cocaine was out, you would hear people who say, hey, I've recovered, but I was chasing that first high that I got for 20, 30 years because you're not able to replicate because your body has adjusted to it.
Witness.
Yeah, yeah. And thank
Witness.
God you're one of the very, that 1/2% who was able to recover from it.
Yeah, it's a trip,
It's
believe
very
me.
rare. It's
Yeah,
very rare. It's
it's a
very
trip,
rare.
and I thank you for acknowledging that because people tend to think it's a monster that is easily walked away from. But I always said
No.
to people that as well that the monster is still in me. I just have to leave him be, you know.
Yeah.
And if I wake him up, then that's it. It's all over. So
Yeah.
But
uh,
Ms. Charles, what about the addictive nature of marijuana? I know there's some debate about how addictive it is compared to other substances like cocaine and heroin. What would you have to say about that?
Because of the frequency of use and because of now the high THC levels, it would range right now. I would even say more addictive than those drugs. That's contraindicated. I mean, that's contradictory to an old stigma they used to have, was that marijuana was natural, it's from the earth, and it won't harm
Yes.
you that way. But once your body gets used to a certain substance being in it, and one of the issues is that we don't know all the stuff that they're putting in it now. They've changed the way that the strands are grown. They've been able to increase the THC production, and the body physically gets used to that. And when you get used to staying impaired, you want to stay impaired. That is a physical addiction. And the problem is the psychological and the normalization and the psychological addiction of it adds to that physical, that reaction that you're getting. So you can't tell me that there's not a huge binding, a collaboration of binding forces, whether they're clinical, hormonal, or psychological, that are making you get and stop using that drug. Because there's very few people that you'll see who use marijuana who have stopped.
No, no, and finally on this one, because we want to move on to alcohol to as
Yeah.
a culturally accepted norm in Trinidad, in our part of the world, and many, I mean, in all over the world,
You're
you know.
right.
But people don't see it as a problem in some cases. But functional decline of young patients, what you have seen, I'm sure you would have seen mothers had to double over with a child coming into your emergency room. But just for future, their future academic future, um, motivation, social
Yeah.
well-being, how would that affect a youngster?
So I go to different high schools and I talk to college students. We work with a lot of athletes right now with the organization I work with called Future MVP, and we do like cardiac screenings and we go and talk to students about drug use. And I tell athletes off the top, I say, if you use any type of substance or drug, you are a kid who plays sports. You're not an athlete. You're
That's
not
it.
you're not taking you're not taking athletics seriously.
Right.
So you're just a kid who's playing a recreational sport. I get it. I probably wouldn't want you on my team because you're not taking it seriously, and people who don't take those types of physical activities seriously get other people hurt in many cases, especially in football and contact sports. If you're out there goofing off or you're impaired, you're not the person to be on the team with me. Um, like I say, I work at a small hospital, even though it's an academic hospital. And when I tell you we see patients, kids every day in their 20s, I mean, literally two, three, four kids every day that are in the hospital because they've lost psychological control, which means they're in a full psychosis. And it takes weeks, it takes days and weeks to get them placed. That's how packed it is. That's that's the prevalence of it. So you got to
We
remember, yeah, in the United States, you got 21 million people who have a duality of substance abuse and mental illness. That's not by coincidence.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's not
Yes.
by coincidence. So we've got to come to some conclusion. There's a clear correlation, right? You've got the mental illness and you've got the substance abuse. That's 21 million people. At some point, you've got to come to some causation that the drug use is assisting and facilitating, accelerating the mental illnesses that we see and the mental instability.